Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the meeting of the Cabinet on this Wednesday, the 21st of July at 10 o'clock in the Oak Room, County Building, Stafford. First item on the agenda is apologies for absence. Mr. Bradbury, do we have any apologies for absence? So for the benefit of those people watching on the webcast, this is the first time we've met back in this room for a year and a half, and we're having just a couple of technical issues, so if you just bear with us, we'll be back with you in a moment.
Leader, I think we're back on now, and I have one apology for this morning's meeting, and that's from Councillor Philip White.
Thank you very much indeed. We've got the next item on the agenda, which is the decision notice of the meeting held on the 16th of June 2021, which you've got tabled before you. There's no comment. Is there any comments I need to make on that? No, just for noting. Can we accept it as a true record, please? Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, moving on then to the agenda item 4, which is the Leaders' Update for July 2021. Colleagues, the lifting of COVID restrictions on Monday is great news for people and businesses across Staffordshire after the sacrifices and incredible efforts of the past 16 months. Hugely positive that we can once again enjoy freedoms that we once all took for granted. That said, and it goes almost without saying, the pandemic is not over. Cases are still increasing in parts of Staffordshire and across the country. Thanks to the vaccine programme, hospitalisations and deaths remain low. But we must take personal responsibility and do our bit. Fewer restrictions increase the risk of people catching the virus. And for vulnerable residents, cancer patients for example, COVID still poses a huge risk. Many others will be nervous about mixing with large groups after shielding or limited social contact for so long. So it's up to all of us to keep doing the right things, wearing face masks in enclosed spaces or on public transport, washing our hands and getting tested regularly. If you haven't yet been fully vaccinated, book your jab as soon as possible. Vaccines are our way out of the pandemic. Over the coming months, the County Council is accelerating action on climate change. We've made a commitment that our council will achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2050, and Councillor Simon Tagg is leading our work on that. Thank you, Simon. We're busy making changes to streetlights, our buildings and vehicles. This month, we've also launched a new campaign to inspire, encourage and support residents and businesses to do the same. Because we can all do our bit to make Staffordshire greener and reduce our impact on the environment by thinking differently about how we live our everyday lives. Small changes can make a big difference, like changing how we travel, heat our homes, although heating homes at the moment is not really an issue for anybody sweltering in the evenings, how we work, look after our surroundings, what we buy, and how we dispose of our waste. If we all do our bit, we'll breathe cleaner air, create greener communities and make Staffordshire a healthier and even more attractive place to live and work. Look out for more from the Make Staffordshire Sustainable campaign on our website and across social media. The County Council is also continuing to invest in the infrastructure Staffordshire people and businesses need to thrive. For example, we've just completed our county-wide broadband partnership, enabling nearly every home and business to connect to superfast speeds of up to 80 megabits per second. But I do have to say, for those people who are not yet connected to those sort of speeds, I know who you are because they are frequently making contact with me to say, I'm not there yet. So we are continuing to work hard on that. The final village, Ellen Hall near Stafford, was recently connected thanks to Superfast Staffordshire programme, a partnership of the County Council, Government's Building Digital UK, BD UK, and Openreach. When the programme began in 2013, just 65% of our properties were able to connect to faster speeds, Now more than 97% can benefit, with tens of thousands already choosing to do so. And I've got to pay tribute to our predecessors on this. For example, Councillor Mark Winnington, who worked very hard to get this going. So we've benefited from the hard work that people like him and others put in to get us to this point. And finally, to sport. While England came so close in the Euros, wasn't it fantastic to see so much coverage of the National Football Centre at St George's Park near Burton? The outstanding facilities there have contributed massively to England's on-pitch success. There was a much welcome return of the Staffordshire 70.3 Ironman this weekend too, and although I pulled out a couple of weeks ago due to not being able to do sufficient training on the day. It was a spectacular event, and I was really delighted to see so many people make it round safely. Congratulations to everyone who worked so hard to stage the event, and as I've said, to the hundreds of elite and amateur competitors. And lastly, on Friday, it's the opening ceremony for the Tokyo Olympics. I'm sure Cabinet colleagues will join me in sending our best wishes to all our Staffordshire Olympians, including the reigning 100-metre breaststroke champion Adam Peaty, boxer Fraser Clark, canoeist Adam Burgess, and triple jumper Ben Williams. 4 of the GB team from Staffordshire. Is absolutely wonderful. Good luck to all of them. And so on to our next item. Incongruously, having gone from the Olympics, we go to the minutes of the meeting of the Property Subcommittee held on the 7th of July 2021. Could I move those as a correct record of the Property Subcommittee? Anybody that was there? Well, I was there. Jonathan? It was just the 2 of us, wasn't it? Yes, so it's, yes, it's certainly correct. Thank you. Agenda item number 6 is an update from the COVID member-led Outbreak Control Board, but what I would like to do, please, Councillor McMahon, is just shift the agenda items around a little bit because Councillor Parry has a call that he needs to be on in 20 minutes or so. So could I ask Councillor Parry to bring forward agenda item, which one is it? 15. Integrated, is it integrated performance report you're doing? Yeah. Bring forward integrated performance report to this agenda item, please, so that Councillor Parry can deliver the report. Councillor Parry, we're with you.
Thank you very much. And forgive me for adding this, Leader, but we've also got Paralympians from Staffordshire, and I'm sure we'd all want to wish them well too in the Paralympic Games as well. So my duty this morning is to present to you the Q1 Integrated Performance Report. And clearly, much of the focus in Q1 has been coping with the COVID-19 pandemic. We're not through this yet, and there is some way to go. There is, therefore, additional pressures upon the county in terms of some of the services that we provide, which are crucial to coping with and supporting our communities through the pandemic. And also, there's additional pressures on our funding, our finances. Those additional pressures have largely been supported by government funding, which we've received and passported through to the appropriate places. It's not additional funding for us to sit on, it's official funding to actually cope with additional pressures or changes and requirements that we need to manage. So, therefore, our present focus in this first quarter is that managing a safe, secure and resilient route through the pandemic and recovery phase. And we still retain, as you'd expect, a fairly prudent approach. We would assess ourselves as being in an amber state based on the fact that we've got some additional risks that exist within the county that we are managing our way through. Nevertheless, I think through good, prudent financial control and management, we are retaining a good run rate in terms of the finances of the county and are expecting to, well, at the present time, our forecast is something like £8.1 million underspend or surplus at the year end, which is 1.5. That doesn't mean we'll end up in that position. That means the forecast at this state, the run rate is looking like a 1.5% underspend on our budgets. Clearly, there are some areas of risk, and much of those exist in the areas of pandemic outbreaks, which the County Council's striking a balance, if you like, of managing those outbreaks in a sensible, controlled way, whilst trying to return to normality in so many areas of society, and particularly in our various care settings. And I think it's worth noting at this point that 100% of staff in our care settings have had received a vaccination, and indeed 92% of people working in those settings have received a second vaccination, which I think puts us in, an enviable position of safety and security for our most vulnerable citizens. And I'm sure Cabinet would want to note that and give our thanks and praise to everybody who's involved in adult social care and looking after our vulnerable and elderly who've taken those precautions to maintain as much as possible a safe living environment for those residents. There's a number of areas in which we can identify, change and improvement, opportunities for the county over the first quarter. There's been some additional funding for our schools, and I think that's welcome, given the pressures that have been put on schools during the pandemic, the pressures on teaching and learning, the missed time, the changes in examination criteria, etc., etc. So that's really welcome. Additional funding also for SEND pupils, again, really welcome. And the report itself, and forgive me, colleagues, but I'm struggling with Wi-Fi connection this morning, so I'm using 4G on my phone to get through this. I would welcome and encourage colleagues to pick out areas from the report of note in their various areas. There are a number of high-profile areas of the county that we could recognise as being important things to note, including in our infrastructure and skills sector, where local businesses are beginning to adapt and get back as much as possible to delivering services and products. We note, for example, that our Back to Business support scheme is still providing over £5 million worth of resources to provide fully funded apprenticeships and workforce training, something that's been possibly has suffered during the pandemic in terms of apprenticeships and job opportunities. And we can also recognise that job seekers allowance claimants decreased to 4.4 of the workforce, not as low as it's been in the past, but certainly well above both regional and national averages, which are both respectively 7% regional, 6.1% national. So in terms of our economic strategy, generating good jobs and growth, Staffordshire's approach continues to be, I believe, a success factor. I'll leave it there, Leader, if I may, but would welcome Cabinet colleagues to point out, if they choose, on their areas, important things that have happened in quarter one.
Thank you. We'll start with Councillor Tagg, then Councillor Price and Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Leader. On page 136, obviously 63, climate change. With the risk of repeating some of the stuff you said in your introduction, I think I will do, though, because it's good news about the Council's programme to replace our street lighting with LED light bulbs. The powering of the corporate buildings, again, reducing the county's carbon emissions, a big step forward on that by sustainable renewable energy for our buildings. And really importantly, we work closely with the districts for the recycling. Over 200,000 tonnes of waste last year were recycled. And we've transferred a lot of that into energy from the waste to power over 60,000 homes. So I'd just like to pay tribute to our districts who collect the recycling, and I think it's a great partnership. Long may it continue. As you said, Leader, at the beginning, we've launched our Together to Make Staffordshire Sustainable campaign, and that's for our businesses, for our residents, and for community groups to do those small little things to make a difference, so we can amend the way we travel, heat our homes differently, how we work, how we buy things and how we dispose of our waste. And all this is working towards our Climate Change Action Plan 2, which is, we're not resting on our laurels with this. A lot's been done, and particularly under the leadership of the previous portfolio holder, Julia. But taking it forward, it is a corporate priority, climate change, and we're going to be concentrating on doing that for a green, sustainable county. Thank you.
Councillor Price.
Thank you. On page 146, it talks about the high needs block. I just thought I might say a few words on that first. So the high needs block is currently overspent by approximately 7.5 million and reflects the continuing growing demand for special educational needs and disability. Staffordshire County Council is not alone in this financial predicament. This is a position shared by the majority of councils. However, going forward, and this is our medium-term plan, it is anticipated that our special educational needs and disability transformation programme, with the full rollout of the district hub model, will provide for a much more inclusive system that enables the necessary early support and intervention to manage demand within our overall resources. However, this will take time, and as I've already suggested, it is a medium-term solution. A couple of other points as well that I just wanted to raise, which Ian has already alluded to. As a result of an increased government investment and revised allocation system, Staffordshire will this year receive an additional 9.6, receive capital funding of 9.6 million, which is the highest allocation since 2015-2016. This is an increase of 5.7 million and is not yet reflected above due to the very recent notification of this allocation. So we haven't allocated it yet. This will be brought into the Capital Schools programme in due course. This significantly higher allocation will give the county an opportunity to further address condition priorities within our schools, and this is excellent news, and this additional money is very much welcomed. For non-school spend, there has been the introduction of the new decarbonation grant of 3.004 million, additional SEND provision of 3.381 million, and other rephasing of schemes with a total of 1.3 million. The SEND amount that I've just mentioned includes 2.4 million of new funding and is Staffordshire's share of a national funding package of 280 million, confirmed by the Department for Education on 21-22. This will be used to deliver new places and improve existing provision for children and young people with special educational needs and disabilities, or wherever we require some form of alternative provision. Thank you.
Councillor Sutton, then Councillor Jessel.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Mr. Parry, for that report. I wanted just to speak briefly and summary, really, about some of the items within the families and community section that relate to children's services and my portfolio. Work on the transformation programme continues with a final implementation date of October of this year. Progress is being made on the children's and families system transformation, as I've just described, but includes one of our new in-house residential unit to support some of our most vulnerable children in the county, and that's in the process. We were currently waiting for planning permission on that property. As of last month, we had 1,245 children in our care. That's a slight increase over the previous 6 weeks, but remains well in line with the business case that we set in our forecast. And that rate is 73 children per 10,000. That's slightly higher than the national benchmark, but is considerably lower than the regional one. Similar sort of story for children are subject of child protection plans, with it being below the recent national benchmark and the regional rate. We're now well, today we're at the start of the summer holidays, which will see the introduction of the holiday activity and food programme across the county as a result of money that we've received and all local authorities have received from central government, which will give children aged between 5 and 16 who are in receipt of benefit-related free school meals, the opportunity for a holiday activity linked to food. And there are over 50 different locations across the county. And I'm looking forward to being able to, over the summer period, go and visit some of those and actually see on the ground how they're working. The next paragraph talks about foster carers, and because of the very nature of foster care and foster carers leaving and doing other things, getting to an age where they can't do it anymore, move, we're always looking out for foster care, for foster carers, and the current campaign is being progressed to try and see if we can find 60 new foster families. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. Councillor Jessel, then Councillor DeVille.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. I'd just like to build on the comments that Councillor Tagg has sent. It's on page 130, item 14, and it's got a climate change element, but also a very serious health element, which is actually providing warmer homes for those in need. As we all know, living in cold, damp homes has a really detrimental impact on people's health. A previous Warmer Homes initiative has helped people, in actual fact, in 240 homes, to have more efficient heating, better insulation. That is of great benefit to those families, but also to our environment. An additional £4.2 million has been allocated by central government, which will allow us to help another 445 households. That's really good news. As I say, there's this really serious side of the benefits to people's health, but also in terms of the environment. If I could also refer to, and I thought I got the right page here, but obviously not, if you can bear with me. In terms of the overall budget, I've lost it now, the COVID has had a significant impact in terms of the demand on health and care. There has been a reduction which ended up being reflected in the budget. That has now reversed and we are seeing an increase in demand. So I think that is a situation where it's a unique situation to all of us, all our departments and services, but we will have to keep a close eye on. And also on page 143, just to give a further update, item 15 refers to the provision of services delivered from Meadow Rythe and Bracken, their two homes that were formerly run by Green Square Accord Housing Association. The update is that the transfer of those services were completed successfully and Nexus is now providing those services, and I understand from both the residents there and their relatives that they are extremely happy with the way that transition has happened, which I'm sure we're all pleased to hear. And thank you to all those involved in Nexus in helping to resolve that situation there. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Jessel. Councillor DeVille.
Thank you, Chairman. I think as Councillor Jessel just touched on, we've just gone through the worst possible 18 months that we could ever imagine, Chairman. It's affected mental health, it's affected our physical health, it's affected our businesses. It's just been the most challenging, dreadful times and dreadfully sad time for us all. But this report from Councillor Parry today, I think, gives us great hope. It gives us great optimism. I think it, again, signifies that Staffordshire is a county that gets the job done. It's a county that doesn't rest on its laurels, and it's a county that doesn't bury its head in the sand during these dreadful times. And I think the future's bright. I think Councillor Tagg referred earlier to the work that we've done during the response phase with our partners, with our district and borough councils, with our great community groups. I'd also like to commend and thank them. And I think they've got a really important part to play, Chairman, in building a new future for Staffordshire. In building a future where we get our county bustling again and busy again, on getting our people upskilled to enable them to develop themselves further. To give opportunities for young people, because I think that young people have probably suffered the most from the last 18 months. So, you know, the plan to give young people opportunities to start their own business. The great scheme on apprenticeships within the county. It's all wonderful, and I'm very optimistic. However, Chairman, I think the most important reflection is that we as a county will continue to help and look after the people who need it most. We've always done that. We'll continue to do that as we recover from this dreadful pandemic. But I think the report that Councillor Parry has presented certainly gives us real optimism for future growth, and to enable everyone to get their lives back again and start smiling again within our great county. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor DeVille. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, and I echo everything that Councillor DeVille has just stated. I think we have had a dreadful, dreadful time of it, and actually we've used that time and we haven't wasted it, and we've done some really great innovative things during this last 16 months. One of those, which is within the report, is the History Archives Service, which I'm delighted to say that we've managed to secure £3.9 million to regenerate the Archives and History Centre on Eastgate Street in Stafford, which will obviously increase tourism in the area, footfall, and it will really become a really vibrant and interesting, exciting place for people to visit, as well as providing storage for our archive service for the next 55 or more years. So that's absolutely fantastic news. Another element of the report, which falls within my portfolio, is the trading standards element. There's a couple of things on there that I wanted to just raise, and one of them is, well, actually, there's one that's not on here, which is about the call blockers. And the call blockers is a product that you provide to people who are vulnerable within the county, who at the moment are receiving phone calls with scams, and it's doing innocent, honest people out of their hard-earned cash. So the trading standards team is pushing that forward now, so that people will be less vulnerable to being scammed. And as well, I'm just trying to find it on the report. Apologies. And the other thing is the savings that we've made to our communities, to our customers, over the last few months, and we've actually saved £130,000, Staffordshire pounds, from being lost to scams and fraud through the council's intervention. So really, really positive things. And finally, if I can just mention the community fund, which has been launched in the last couple of weeks, and I really encourage everybody to have their local community groups, volunteers, apply for that funding, because it's a very small amount of money, but it's planting an acorn and watching an oak grow. So I really recommend that people take that up, but I really welcome the report. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, colleagues, for your input to that report. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot of good stuff going on, but as Councillor DeVille constantly reminds us, we are not complacent at all. These occasions are, I suppose, a celebration of what we've done over the past quarter, and a look forward to what's coming up. But the road ahead is hard. Let's not be under any illusions. Financial challenges still exist. The pandemic has not gone, and we're going to have to redouble our efforts to make sure we deliver for the people of Staffordshire. We sometimes stand accused of mutual backslapping on occasions like this. Well, that's not true. What we're doing is celebrating and making sure that people realise everything that's going on in this county for their benefit. But we are always conscious of those challenges that lie ahead, and we'll work hard to make sure we overcome them, to make sure that people can live happy, healthy, fulfilling lives in Staffordshire, unencumbered by the problems that we have to face on a day-to-day basis. So, colleagues, thank you, as I say, for your input to the report. I'll just go back to the recommendations. The recommendation is that the Cabinet notes and challenges performance and advises of any further information and or action required. That's the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you very much. We will now move back. We'll return to the agenda as set out, and thank you for your latitude on that. We've got now the update from the COVID member-led Outbreak Control Board with Councillor McMahon.
Thank you, Leader. As we all know, the numbers in Staffordshire are rising, as is the case nationally, and in Staffordshire as a whole, we're broadly similar to the country as a whole. We've had recent outbreaks in Newcastle and in Leek, and a current similar outbreak in Tamworth. But the way we go about these outbreaks works. We're bringing them to heel. And Tamworth now is really, in terms of its numbers, rates per 100,000, back somewhere within the pack. And we're really grateful for the work that everybody does to do that in the County Council and our member organisations, particularly the NHS, but also, most importantly, the people. If it wasn't for the goodwill of the people of Staffordshire, we would have a devil of a job getting on top of this. And again, the goodwill and common sense of the people of Staffordshire has shown that this pandemic can be beaten. Despite the rises, there is a rise in hospitalisation, but it's nothing like the rise that we would expect given the numbers in the community. And that's due to the vaccine. The vaccine has broken the link between getting the disease and being hospitalised and being particularly unwell with it. It has not broken it completely, but it's gone a long way to doing so. We all know that about Monday. It's stage 4, and we're through the other side. And we've been advised and beseeched to take personal responsibility and to be reasonable and take reasonable precautions for what we do. I think there's a couple of things here. The first is, even if you feel bulletproof, and many of youngsters in particular may well feel bulletproof, we've got to consider those that we meet in the community. And I think it's a question of common decency, common courtesy, and just showing respect. We don't know if the person we sit next to in a bus has a relative who's died of it, or has had severe COVID themselves or long COVID. And I just think it's a question of showing that respect while celebrating the fact that we've reached stage 4 and we're out the other end, and we should enjoy life as a result and take the advantages of the freedoms that we've been given while giving due respect to others. We still ought to take consideration, however, particularly in this weather, of being outside when we can, because it reduces the risk of transmission considerably. If not, we're inside in well-ventilated spaces. Keep washing our hands, that's really helpful. And getting that second jab. The Delta variant has some effect on the first jab, but the really important thing is getting the second jab to get the full effect. And we've got to really drive that home. Which leads on to the vaccinations, and that's going well. The rate of the young people between 18 and 29 getting vaccinated isn't the rate at which they get vaccinated is not as great as it is in the older population, which we do expect. But still, 40% of 18 to 29-year-olds have been double vaccinated, and over 60% have had the first vaccine, which is heartening. And we're moving now from a situation where people got the vaccine to begin with, those who are at serious risk, because because they wanted their lives saved. Now, it's people getting their livelihoods and their lives back. And we know that through things like the nightclubs and being able to travel abroad, that if they're fully vaccinated, they'll be able to enjoy these freedoms once again. Which leads me on to our defences and what we do. We've managed to get on top of these outbreaks by surge testing, surge vaccination, a very robust comms programme with Christian Marcucci and his team, and supporting the most vulnerable. And we will continue to do that. And those COVID-19 defences will remain in place at least during this financial year. And I just want to say a couple of other things finally. It's becoming the case that the triad that we were all used to of losing taste and smell, temperature, and a cough is less common now when one gets it than it used to be. It seems as if it's all cold, runny nose, and a sore throat. So the message to everybody is, if you feel unwell in any sort of a way, get a test, get a test. The other thing that we decided yesterday evening, that we would maintain the current frequency of the Local Outbreak Control Board and make it every fortnight. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. For those people watching on the webcast, I'd just like to remind them of the composition of the Local Outbreak Control Board. It is a senior elected representative from each of the districts and boroughs, the leadership of the County Council, portfolio holder for Cabinet Support Member for Public Health, Councillor Charlotte Atkins, representing the Labour group across the county, and Councillor Jeremy Pert, who is the chair of the Health Scrutiny Committee. So very senior elected representatives coming together once a fortnight at the moment, just to check in to make sure that the what's going on across the county is well understood by leading politicians and that we are getting the messages out to members of the public. It has been a tribute to the cooperation of districts and boroughs and all political groupings across this county that group has worked so well, and I thank everybody who's taken part in it. What is very clear to me over the past 18 months is, in a situation like this, we step away from politics and we just do what's right for the people that we represent, no matter what our political views. And I would just like to thank everybody for their contribution to that Local Outbreak Control Board. It has been magnificent. At the moment, it's currently fortnightly. That's because of the circumstances we find ourselves in. Previously, it has been weekly. It may drop down to monthly as necessary, but we will continue to convene to make sure that we're on it as politicians. Councillor DeVille.
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you, Mr McMahon, for another very useful update, both today and at last night's Outbreak Control Board meeting. And thank you for your extreme hands-on leadership during the past difficult months. Massively, massively important, Johnny. It really is, and appreciated. I'm delighted, Chairman, to hear of the situation in Tamworth, that seems to be improving. Again, sorry, but no complacency whatsoever. Got to keep a finger on the pulse with this, because this damn virus tends to come and bite us, doesn't it, when we don't expect it. We had a similar, very difficult situation in Leek recently, and there was a tremendous instant response from all partners to that, and we got it under control very, very quickly. Councillor Atkins is with us today, and I'm sure she'll agree that the response was swift. The response was unified. You're right, Alan. Politics goes through the window when you're fighting this virus. And I think that everyone, Charlotte, in the towns of the Moorlands, not just Leek, the towns of the Moorlands and the rural areas, every member got involved in looking at that particular issue that we got in Leek. And as a result, we got it under control very, very quickly, with great communication from the district and the counties, and great hands-on work at a very, very fast rate of knots. But it's not about councillors. It's certainly not about buildings. The fight against this virus is the people, as you said, Mr McMahon. It's about the people. At that time in Leek, the local people showed a great common sense. They showed great courtesy to each other. They looked after each other, looked out for each other, and worked in partnership. And I urge everyone, Chairman, to do exactly the same now post the 19th of July. Because it's not going away anywhere, but we will beat it, providing that we respect each other, that we continue to show each other the courtesy and respect for each other, and continue looking out for each other, looking after each other and doing the right things. That's how we'll beat this virus long term, Chairman.
And finally, Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, echo what Mark has said and what you said, Leader. I think there's been some dark days on the board, hasn't there, during the the depths of the lockdown and the second lockdown. I think we've all moved together as a county and districts as one. We had, as we all know, frank expressions of views on it, but we've all moved forward in the end. And I think it's a tribute to also our officers, that Richard Harding and also his team that have been there and really told us as it is, and also give us some very good recommendations which we've taken up. And we've also been able to influence the government on policies that they've implemented in Staffordshire when it came to the various tiers. Remember those? The tier systems we were in. So I think it's been, and I agree with you going forward, we need to keep meeting, and the fortnightly approach is sensible to monitor as we do have outbreaks. Newcastle is currently second highest in the county now on numbers of cases. So we've got to watch it and we've got to move forward together. Thank you.
Briefly, Councillor Price.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, just to say as well, and I won't add anything more that's been said on that, but just to say that Becky and the team at the Education Cell of the COVID Outbreak Control Board has also done an absolutely outstanding job, and I did want to mention her and her small team. We had extremely high numbers in schools. That number actually dropped yesterday, but now that we're into the summer holidays, hopefully that has now been resolved, and that those cases will not spread through schools as was, and hopefully that break will give us a time to get the numbers of the pupils that were in school reduced, isolating and with COVID reduced significantly. But an awful lot of tired teachers out there as well, and professionals within the education sector, and I'd just like to pay tribute to them and all the hard work that they have had to endure this term, and hopefully things will be on a much improved basis come the new autumn term. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you to Councillor Dr McMahon for your report. If the Deputy Leader was here, he would surely be saying his wife is a teacher. They've had a belly full of it. Okay, so they're really looking forward to the summer holidays and an opportunity to recharge batteries, a well-deserved break for those people who work in the teaching sector. It's been really tough, and the kids have been really resilient, and they've adapted very well. We do need to do a lot to help them catch up over the next year, 2 years, however long it takes. So, but thank you, Councillor McMahon, for your report. Moving on then to agenda item number 7, Staffordshire Means Back to Business oral update. Now the Deputy Leader, whose portfolio it is away today, giving his apologies. So it's over to me to give the oral update. Now, there is no way I could do this justice, so I'll be relatively brief with my report, and thank you to Darryl and your team for providing me with the information to allow me to do this. So I'll give you a few of the highlights, and at the next Cabinet meeting when Councillor White is back in harness, he will surely be able to give you a more fulsome update. But first of all, Universal Credit claimant count in Staffordshire saw a decrease of 1,380 claimants between April and May 2021 to a total of 23,400 claimants, and the claimant rate declined to 4.4% of the working age population in May, compared to 7% regionally and 6.1% nationally. So that's a good result for Staffordshire. There have been some significant announcements for our local businesses and wider economy, demonstrating real confidence, including the growth of the stone-based Midlands 3D printing, doubling its production capacity for 3D print manufacturing of strong nylon parts. Up to 30 new jobs, along with 15 new apprenticeships and 11 higher apprenticeships, look set to be created at a sheet metal manufacturing business as part of a £4 million investment in the new site. Alpha Manufacturing has broken ground on a 35,000 square feet facility which is being constructed at Beacon Park in Stafford. A start on site for the first phase of Quintus employment land developments at Branson Locks near Burton-upon-Trent, with 235,000 square feet of floor space available during early 2022, and online fulfilment company Supersmart Service also taking space at the nearby St Modwyn Park. And food company Ornua Ingredients, I hope I pronounced that correctly, I'm so sorry if I haven't. Is that correct? That's correct. Investing £500,000 in its facility in Leek, building on an investment of £3 million announced in November 2020. And of course, the 500 additional jobs across JCB's operations on top of the 850 announced earlier this year. And I know that Councillor Philip Atkins is particularly proud of that announcement. Staffordshire means Back to Business additional restrictions grant, known as ARG in the jargon, designed in discussion with district and borough councils, the Federation of Small Businesses and the Chambers of Commerce, allows the pooling of the ARG together with significant contribution from Staffordshire County Council of £862,000. This programme was approved by Cabinet in January 2021. To the districts and boroughs, all 8 districts and boroughs have signed up to the programme, which now stands at a value of £5.3 million, of which £1.7 million have been committed. Outputs so far include over 100 apprenticeships underway. And I'd just like to, as a personal note, my second son, who's 23, is doing an apprenticeship at IMI Engineering in Fradley. He chose not to go to university and is learning about engineering skills at the facility there. I've got to say, what a fantastic thing to do. At the end of each month, instead of having debt, he's given beer tokens and money to spend on cars, which he often changes the shape of, either deliberately or inadvertently. But notwithstanding that fact, apprenticeships are really, really value-adding, and I would implore anybody whose children of late teens, early 20s are considering an apprenticeship, give it some serious consideration, because he does come up with some interesting factory floor opinions on life, though, I've got to say, which he frequently shares with me. But anyway, apprenticeships. 130 companies having received free training. Nearly 300 students have registered on the Ignite online learning platform. 7,000 students have received an Ignite lesson, and over 600 applications received for people wanting advice and help to start up their own businesses. I-54 strategic 60-acre employment site extension concludes this month, and to colleagues in South Staffordshire, that's an important addition. And the partnership, that represents the partnership between Staffordshire County Council, the City of Wolverhampton Council, South Staffordshire Council, and both Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent and Black Country local enterprise partnerships. We've worked safely through COVID-19, and discussions are underway with 2 additional occupiers at I-54. So, colleagues, that is a brief whip round of what's going on in the business community at the moment. If there's any questions, and I can't see anybody indicating. Councillor de Ville is going to probably correct my pronunciation of... No,
not at all, Leader. What I'm going to do is I'm going to compound slightly your comment. As an ex-JCB apprentice, I'm delighted to hear of the 500 new jobs at JCB. Delighted to hear of that series of success stories, Alan, as well across the county, because we often say that small business is the lifeblood of the county's economy, and all of these initiatives, Leader, the Staffordshire Startup Loans, the Staffordshire to Thrive grants, the fantastic Staff's Apprenticeship 500 initiative, all those are geared up to help small businesses and small businesses now. And I will just expand on one initiative that you did mention, the Ignite scheme. That's fantastic, because that will encourage young people still at school, going into college, encourage young people to start up their own business. You know, the start of new entrepreneurs. So these schemes are all wonderful schemes, really, really well timed as well.
Councillor Jessel.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. Building on the comments that Councillor de Ville has said, I think it just shows what a bit of foresight does. We've been through a very difficult period. Both central government and ourselves have invested in job creation across a whole gambit of job opportunities and business opportunities. I think one of the things that we hear about is the anticipated increase in unemployment when the furlough scheme gets wound down. I think it's the end of September. but this shows there are new jobs coming available for people to take on, and the training opportunities. We know that the future lies in having people available with the right skills, and we've got to make those opportunities available to people so that they can improve their lives. You know, hopefully the minimum people be in unemployment, and I think these schemes show that we've had our eye on the future, because the future's bright.
Well said, Councillor Jessel. Thank you for that. I'd just like to pay tribute to Councillor Philip White for all the hard work that he's doing with this portfolio. And as I say, I couldn't have given it the justice that he would have given it had he been present today. But you've got a flavour of all the stuff that's going on. Also, thank you to Mr. Ayres and his team for all the work you're doing. It's with your energy and enthusiasm that we are able to deliver what I've just set out. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was an oral update on Staffordshire Means Back to Business. Moving on then to agenda item number 8. This is intensive support for Staffordshire children with disabilities. Councillor Sutton, we're with you. Start off with.
Thank you very much, Leader. And this is a joint report between myself and Mr. Price. So I'll start with a sort of summary of what it entails, a little bit of the background, and what we plan to do going forward. Staffordshire County Council has a legal duty to ensure children's community support provision is in place to support children, young people with a range of disabilities who have been assessed by a suitably qualified social worker as being eligible for a personal care service within the family home and local community. Providers currently support children and young people with a range of disabilities, including children and young people with physical and learning disabilities, autism and challenging behaviours, and many children have multiple needs. They provide a range of care packages across Staffordshire which are tailored to the specific needs of the eligible child or young person. Similarly, County Council has a legal duty to offer a range of commissioned short break opportunities, ranging from community-based breaks of a few hours to overnight short breaks for children under the Breaks for Carers and Disabled Children Regs 2011. This programme of support is known as Aiming High for children with disabilities in Staffordshire and augments our in-house and commissioned overnight short break units. So the County Council currently commissions a range of providers from across the county to deliver this support on behalf of the local authority, though there are currently commissioned and contracted as 2 separate programmes. The proposals detailed within this paper advocates the benefits of bringing these arrangements together under one commissioning to provide more flexibility, responsive support that draws on children and families' existing strengths and focuses on development, independence, preparedness for adulthood and cost effectiveness. Now, the reasons for that rationale, the strengths of that, are that this will allow access to different levels of support within one contracting arrangement, access to a wide range of providers for families and social care professionals, flexibility to step up and step down support as required across all elements of home care and community support, and will give more choice of service types for other families, better tailored to their needs at any one particular time. And all that fits into the County Council's strategic plan around outcomes, priorities and principles, and is within the Whole Life Disability Strategy 2018 to 2023. And before I intend to read the recommendations for colleagues, if I can just call Mr. Price in to talk a little bit about the SEND aspect.
Councillor Price.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Sutton. Some of these support packages that we do put in place for families are absolutely key for parents' mental health, not just the child's, and it's an absolute godsend that some of this work is done. We've just recently and officially, along with our partners, signed off the Staffordshire SEND Strategy 2021 to 2025, which is a really important document about the things that we are are doing to support children and young people with special educational needs and disabilities. On page 14, it does list in item 5 4 of those priorities identified within the SEND strategy that this covers. One is we communicate well with others. We work in partnership to meet the needs of children and young people. We ensure that the right support is available at the right time, an absolutely key point, and that we encourage communities to be inclusive. And I thank Councillor Sutton as well for his comments, and I fully support this, so thank you.
Any observations from members of Cabinet before Councillor Sutton reads out the recommendations? Just from me, just to emphasise the importance of the work that you're doing, absolutely critical and vitally important for a good number of young people across the county. So, Councillor Sutton, if you could go to the recommendations, please.
Thank you, Leader. Recommendations are A. This brings the commissioning of the previously separate arrangements for children with disabilities, community support and aiming high one-to-one intensive support and short breaks together into one contracting arrangement to achieve a more seamless and flexible system of support for eligible children, and one that is administratively more efficient for Staffordshire County Council to manage. B. It supports the open tender approach and implementation of a flexible framework, including delegated approval to relevant officers to award contracts, detailed in the costed options appraisal to secure the required provision at optimum value for money commencing from April the 1st, 2022. C. Notes the regular break clauses in the proposed contract, 2 + 1 + 1 years, which will allow time to develop joint approaches to the commissioning and procurement of this provision with adult social care colleagues and other authorities, including the other West Midlands authorities, to attempt to overcome the current challenges for providers and especially new entrants with respect to service volumes. And lastly, D. Uses the first 2 years of the new contract to further investigate the merits and risks associated with in-house delivery of this support and the efficiency of this model within the proposed new children's system, as the options appraisal demonstrated a number of potential strengths to this approach. And those are the recommendations, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. You've heard the recommendations. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 9. The future delivery of replacement care services in Staffordshire learning disabilities, from the Cabinet Member for Health and Care, Councillor Jessel.
Thank you very much, Chairman. As we all know, respite, as I always know them, but they are called officially replacement care services, are so important for those who have got learning difficulties, but also the support for their families and carers. It's absolutely vital and enables those carers to continue that vital role. The last 16 months has been a challenge for all our social care services, and learning difficulties is no different. But it has presented us with an opportunity to review the service, as it's become apparent that it doesn't provide the flexibility that is actually needed. It's also identified weaknesses of some of the building-based services, such as that provided in Douglas Road. Because of the social distancing and infection control required, half that building has not been utilised, and also CQC recommendations of having no more than 6 residents in an establishment have also posed a challenge to us. The report sets out quite clearly what the facilities are and the relevant costs, and also the arrangements, in fact, in respect of some of the services are provided directly by us, and other services are commissioned. We commissioned up to 15 residential replacement care beds from independent providers, and those are done from some buildings which we let, and some is a sublet to Lifeways. The current contracts expire in March 2022, and this report and the recommendation asks that we go out and do an options appraisal not just on the in-house services, but across the whole range of respite services for learning disabilities. In November 2020, Cabinet supported the principle of expanding support for people in their own homes, but as I say, this now is to ask for an options appraisal for the whole of learning disabilities respite or replacement care services. The report did go to the Health Overview and Scrutiny Panel. They had no particular comments to make, but obviously we'll be very interested in the outcome of that options appraisal. We will also be ensuring that all stakeholders are consulted as part of this process. The report, the recommendation is that Cabinet endorse the commencement of an options appraisal for the future provision of replacement care for people with learning disabilities in Staffordshire, including engagement with service users, carers and stakeholders, the results of which will be presented to Cabinet in the third quarter of 2021. Happy to answer any questions, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Jessel. Any members of Cabinet got any questions? I see no hands being raised. Having done the portfolio for a number of years prior to yourself and Councillor McMahon, I know how important learning disabilities are. I also fully understand how difficult changes are in that sector. Many people have been part of the learning disability community for many, many years, and as a result, things have to be handled extremely sensitively. I know and have every confidence that you'll be able to negotiate these conversations with stakeholders as sensitively as necessary. And so thank you for everything you're doing. Colleagues, you've heard the recommendation. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Moving on then to the next item on the agenda, which is the Child Exploitation and Missing Children and Young People's Service. Sorry, I've completely muddled that up. Councillor Sutton, we're with you.
Thank you again, Leader. I don't think I can emphasise enough how much protecting children from exploitation is so important and must remain an absolute priority for all the partners within Staffordshire. So it remains a priority, an absolute priority for the County Council and the Staffordshire Children's Safeguarding Board. Child exploitation can have an absolute devastating impact on children and their families, with child exploitation being inclusive of child sexual exploitation, child criminal exploitation, gangs, county lines, knife crime, youth violence, modern slavery, child trafficking and radicalisation. The Staffordshire Children's Safeguarding Board and the Stoke-on-Trent Safeguarding Board have co-produced a joint child exploitation strategy which seeks to outline the local approach to preventing, identifying and tackling child exploitation. This strategy was developed using an extensive local needs analysis, building upon national policy and guidance about effective practice. This strategy also recognises and addressing the risks and vulnerabilities faced by children and young people who go missing. On the 1st of April 2021, Catch-22, who currently are commissioned to provide this, are entering into the final year of delivery under the current procurement arrangements. This is led by Stoke-on-Trent City Council. To ensure continued compliance with the appropriate procurement regulations, the partnership have undertaken a further substantial period of analysis, research and design to co-produce future commission intentions relating to child exploitation and missing children and young people. The partnership are also proposing to work together with the incumbent provider to develop a transition plan to reflect the proposed commission intentions outlined within this report. So Staffordshire County Council have agreed to be the lead for the future commissioning arrangements relating to child exploitation and missing children and young people. In consideration of this, the County Council is leading a joint commissioning group which includes Stoke-on-Trent City Council and the Staffordshire Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner's Office. So the future commissioning intentions are that those three organisations are proposing to commission a pan-Staffordshire child exploitation and missing children and young persons service. This proposed service will see the child sexual exploitation and missing children and young people service model configured to be inclusive of all forms of exploitation, as I highlighted earlier, and also as outlined in the child exploitation strategy. It is proposed that the service will consist of 4 key elements, and all those are detailed well within the report, but very briefly they are a missing from home and care offer, the child exploitation offer, the lived experience offer, and the personalised approach. I'm happy just to leave it there, see if there's any questions before I read the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. I can't see any hands being raised, but Councillor DeVille.
Very briefly, Chairman, if I may. Thank you, Mr Sutton. And I think you've clearly indicated there that the care of these most vulnerable children in Staffordshire is absolutely at the top of our objectives list, absolutely at the top of our attention as a council, and so it should be. And I feel extremely relieved, Councillor Sutton and Cabinet members, that we'll continue as a Cabinet, as a County Council, to look after the most vulnerable people in our county, and warmly welcome this report, Councillor Sutton. Thank you.
I think I might go slightly a step further, because I get slightly unhinged about these sort of things. The fact that we need this sort of service for child sexual exploitation and child exploitation is a sad thing, really. There is a special place in hell for adults that abuse children, and I'm pleased that we have individuals, members of staff, who help prevent this sort of thing. But the fact that we need to do anything about it is a sadness, really, in our society. And whatever we can do to remove child exploitation and the perpetrators of child exploitation, I'm all for. And I'm delighted that it involves, I noticed in the report, the Office of the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner as part of this, because that's right and proper that is the case. People who get involved in this sort of adults who exploit children are despicable. So whilst I welcome this, Councillor Sutton, it isn't, I'm afraid, for the right reasons, I guess. You're doing what you need to do because you find the circumstances that you find. That's almost Rumsfeldian in its construction, that sentence. But I think you understand what I mean by that. So I'll hand back to you to read the recommendations and any concluding remarks.
Okay, thank you very much, Leader. And just before I do, thank you for your comments, and also mention what I forgot to mention before, that Scrutiny have had the opportunity to scrutinise this previously before it's got to this stage. So the recommendations to Cabinet are: A, Cabinet endorses the commission intentions of Staffordshire County Council, Stoke-on-Trent City Council and the Staffordshire Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner's Office in relation to the development of a pan-Staffordshire child exploitation and missing children and young people service. B, approaches the procurement of a pan-Staffordshire child exploitation and missing children and young people service by Staffordshire County Council on behalf of Stoke-on-Trent City Council and the Staffordshire Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner. C, delegates decisions in relation to the Pan-Staffordshire child exploitation and missing children and young people service to the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People in consultation with the Deputy Chief Executive and Director for Families and Communities. And lastly, D, acknowledges that the delegation to the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People includes acting on behalf of the County Council to finalise the joint commissioning deed of agreement and the entering of required contractual arrangements with the successful bidder. Those are the recommendations, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Moving on to agenda item 11, which is public health contracting plans with the Cabinet Member for Health and Care, Councillor Jessel, and Cabinet Support Member for Public Health and Integrated Care, Councillor McMahon.
Councillor McMahon is taking the lead on this, and I will just wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. This paper is to outline the adult services in public health that are to be commissioned over the next 2 years. It's broadly in 3 parts: sexual health, drugs and alcohol, and lifestyle services. And the lifestyle services does include adult health checks, which are one of the statutory obligations in the Public Health Ringfest grant. Sexual health, the contract ends in March of next year, March 22. As you can see in the paper, we currently have a range of providers. There's been a prior information notice that went out in March, along with a questionnaire, and we're starting the procurement process this summer. We intend it to be a longer contract than one would normally do for these things, because we want to allow the provider to respond to a different world post the pandemic. It won't be as multiple providers the way we had before. Instead, it will be the whole of Staffordshire, along with Stoke-on-Trent and Telford and the Wrekin. We believe that this affords an economies of scale which will be more attractive to providers and improves the current pathways for the clients. And we intend that that does 3 things. 1, it gives makes client satisfaction better. It reduces the number of terminations and sexually transmitted infections in our community. I'm very keen that we look particularly at the long-acting reversible contraceptions, which is done through practices at the moment, and the emergency contraception piece, in order to bear down on the termination rate, which granted is lower than the UK average, but the more we can do for that, the better for our community, and particularly for the women that have to undergo this. Drugs and alcohol is done by an organisation called Humankind, and it couldn't have started at a more difficult time. The contract started in April 20. And I'm glad to say that they've done very well. The contract allowed them to look at problem drinkers only in the initial piece. But actually, they've taken on hazardous drinkers as well. They see about 3,000 a year, half of which are alcohol-related, half of which are opiate-related, and some of clearly will be both. And they've managed to also take on another 10%, 300 hazardous drinkers, because we believe that's an issue as a result of home drinking during lockdown in the pandemic. They take a 3-pronged approach: medication, therapy, and practical support, which we understand is working well. The reason it's in this paper is that there's 2 pieces of commissioning in relation to drugs and alcohol, which are now available to us. One is a 1.2 million Public Health England funded grant in order to produce an inpatient detoxification unit for the West Midlands. There's currently 14 local authorities involved in that, in the regional consortium, and we are the lead authority in driving that. Now, it is only a 1-year grant, and that has gone out and made perfectly clear to those who are interested in it. But we believe the report of Dame Carol Black, which has taken a lot of interest in Westminster, will mean that there's every possibility that we'll have recurrent funding for this. But the potential providers know it's only for 1 year. And the same applies to the 440,000 being given to us in order to mitigate drug-related deaths and offending. Again, that's only for 1 year, but we have some confidence that it may be for more, but those who are interested know the situation. The lifestyle services is done by an organisation called Everyone Health, and they do a plethora of stuff, as you can see: weight management, physical activity, falls prevention, social isolation, NHS health checks, and stop smoking. You will see in the paper that we've asked for what the outcomes look like and what the measurable criteria for these outcomes are. And as you will see, against them all, there are outcome criteria to see whether we're doing the right thing and spending taxpayers' money wisely. During the pandemic, there was less falls prevention and more isolation work done by virtue of social distancing and the like. And I think we need to be cognizant of that. The new contract starts in March 23, and this gives us a real opportunity. We're having a revised joint strategic needs assessment as a result of COVID-19. The last one was done in published in March 20. We're going to revise that. We're going to have a new public health strategy for this administration, looking at the JSNA, and both of those can feed into this new contract. So I think the future possibilities for this lifestyle services are significant given the timing of this commissioning. In closing, not mentioned in the report, but I think is worthy of mention, is that the Municipal Journal has local government achievement awards, and our supportive communities piece was shortlisted for it. We're shortlisted to 6. We were told that the field was quite extensive, and last Tuesday, Tilly Flanagan, who works for Public Health, Jill Norman for Support Staffordshire, and myself presented our offering to the examiners. And we think that went well. We think we made a fist of it. But we're just delighted to be shortlisted. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Jessel.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you very much, Councillor McMahon, for a very comprehensive review of these proposals. As has been said, this is for a 2-year contract. The Public Health Ring Fence grant is in total £40 million, and actually within that there are fairly strict guidelines, so actually there is a limit to the flexibility that we have. And the contracts will be let in accordance with national guidelines as well. You will note that in paragraph 21 there's a £1.2 million which is yet to be committed. And whilst the report focuses on our commissioned contracts, there are other issues that are identified in the report that have been highlighted by the Joint Strategic Needs Assessment. And that has led to work with community health points, and I think it's that kind of work that we would look at. There is no direct impact on the Council's medium-term financial strategy because this is ring-fence funding, and therefore I recommend that the Cabinet note the forthcoming plans for commissioning sexual health, drug and alcohol and lifestyle services as detailed in this report, and delegate authority to award and enter into relevant contracts for the services in financial years 21-22 and 22-23 to the Cabinet Member for Health and Care in consultation with the Cabinet Support Member for Public Health and Integrated Care and the Director of Health and Care. Thank you. I so move.
Thank you. Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you for the to the Cabinet leads for that. I just wanted to emphasise the importance of a lot of the public health ring-fenced grant and what's been mentioned on the lives of children, and particularly children that children's services provisioned work with because there's neglect, child protection, or end up in care. Some of the issues within those families can quite often be in 4 particular areas, and that's mental health, domestic abuse, finance, and the one big factor that's in here as well, and that's addiction. So those drug and alcohol services that are provided here for adults are really important in us being able to improve outcomes for some of our children and prevent children ending up in the need of other services within the county. And of course, within the Ring Fence grant, there's also the Healthy Child programme, which in itself is a really important factor in the development of young children and ensuring that they reach a good level of development by the time they reach the age of 5.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome this, but particularly focusing on the drugs and alcohol side of the contract. Obviously, we know about anybody that walks around our town centres across the county will see there is an issue with you know, drug taking and drinking on the street, you know, causing a lot of problems for the local police and for the authorities. Does the contract include an outreach part which can work with local authorities and local town centres to be able to address some of those problems? These people have got very complex, long-standing problems that require assistance. And I think that would be a good angle to this contract if, you know, the charity UK Mind were able to do that and work with the police and local authorities.
In the absence of any other questions from members of Cabinet, Councillor McMahon, could you answer that question?
I think the 440,000 that's been allocated for reducing deaths and keeping addicts out the criminal justice system ought to result in that if it's done properly. And I've got every confidence it will be.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the recommendations from Councillor Jessel. All those in favour? Unanimous. Moving on then to the next item on the agenda, which is recommission of Staffordshire Integrated Advocacy Service. This is a joint report between the Cabinet Member for Health and Care and the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People. Who's leading off? Councillor Jessel.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. This is a joint report between myself and Councillor Sutton, Cabinet Member for Children and Young People. As we all know, the availability of advocacy services is essential to support those who, for a variety of reasons, may need support and advice and to be able to express concerns and issues that they want to. And every year this service supports thousands of people across the county to take more control of their lives. The current contract expires the end of March 2022 and there is no option for further extensions to this contract. It provides advocacy services for the 14 plus age group and their carers, and that's why it's a joint report by myself and Councillor Sutton. The service will continue with a single integrated Staffordshire-wide service because we feel that that is the best model. And the report sets out the commissioning aims and options, including the anticipated changes to the deprivation of liberty safeguards and to transferring to liberty protection safeguards, and highlights the possible increase in contract costs as a consequence of that. There are two options, but it is considered that option A is considered the most appropriate option, which is to go out to tender. And I can confirm that the chairs of the overview and scrutiny committees have been briefed and have had no comments to make on this particular report. If Councillor Sutton would like to add any comments before I read out the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Jessel. Just briefly, really, because I think most of what needs to be said has been said. I think it's really important within here that young people aren't dealt with standalone, and the aim of including young people within this is mainly for that transition when they're over 14 to a time when they may be, or people they work with may be in receipt of services. Because dealing with authorities and institutions as a young person can be particularly a daunting experience. And so, you know, this will help those young people be able to deal with authorities and other things going forward. So, yeah, I really welcome what's in here and that addition of that transition period for young people.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. Councillor Jessel, could you read out the recommendations, please?
Yes, indeed. I recommend that Cabinet approves the commencement of a competitive tender process to procure the Commission service in accordance with option A, which is recommission of an equivalent integrated advocacy service model as detailed in this report. And B, provides approval for the contract to be awarded and entered into with a successful provider following the competitive tender process to be delegated to the Director for Health and Care and the Deputy Chief Executive and Director for Families and Communities. I so move.
You've heard the recommendations, ladies and gentlemen. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Agenda item number 13 is the UK Community Renewal Fund priority projects, brought to you by the Deputy Leader of the Council and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills, for whom I am substituting at the moment. So forgive the fact that I'm doing it, and I won't do it justice. His enthusiasm and energy for this subject exceeds mine by some considerable degree. So I'll give you a quick thumbnail and read out the recommendations, and can I suggest that should you have any further questions about the details of that, you refer them to Councillor Philip White. That's code for don't ask me any questions, because I won't be able to answer them today. Okay, so the £220 million UK Community Renewal Fund aims to support people and communities most in need across the UK to pilot programmes and new approaches that will invest in skills, community and place, local businesses and supporting people into employment. The level of interest we have seen in the UK Community Renewal Fund bidding process has been very positive, and as a result we have created a pipeline of projects from a broad range of organisations reflecting our ambitions for Staffordshire. The Government planned to announce the successful projects at the end of July, and the delegation is needed to mobilise the projects quickly to support the delivery and the completion of outputs and impact by the end of March 2022. I'll just repeat that, okay, the end of March 2022. So to the Director of Economy, good luck. That is a very, very short period of time for substantial sums of money coming out the door to be spent by March 2022. So we do need to get a wiggle on with this, hence the recommendations. The recommendation is that we agree that Staffordshire County Council, the Council, continues its role as lead authority for the UK Community Renewal Fund and moves to the additional role of accountable body for UK CRF. B, to agree that the Director of Economy, Infrastructure and Skills be given the delegated authority to 1. Authorise the Council to enter into an agreement, accountable body agreement, with the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, MHCLG, formalising the Council's role as lead authority and accountable body for the UK CRF. 2. Authorise the Council to enter into an individual grant funding agreement, grant agreement, with each of the successful providers. 3, if applicable, authorise any formal variations or extensions required to the accountable body agreement or to the individual grant agreements based on performance or changes in UK CRF guidance. I so move, ladies and gentlemen. Councillor Tagg, you're indicating, as is Councillor Williams. Councillor Tagg?
Thank you, Chair. No questions, just a comment, because obviously, as we've seen in the report, Newcastle-under-Lyme is the priority area for this round of the UK Community Renewal Fund. It's really pleased to see the amount of applications that come in. It creates a lot of interest within the borough and partners within the borough and organisations, and that tight time scale really focus people's minds. I think that's an advantage of some of the tight time scales in some ways. And of course, the outcome of this is projects that invest in skills, the community, the local place, local businesses, and supporting people in employment. And on the back of the investment the government's put into Newcastle through the town deals and the Future High Street Fund, this is another bonus, and really support the recommendations and the County Council's approach to this. It is a very ambitious timescale for next spring, of course, but I think we're on a lot of ambitious timescales when it comes to government funding at the moment, the town deals and the Future High Streets Fund, so I have every confidence that we can deliver that and get those results and outcomes for local people. And hopefully there'll be more rounds of the Community Renewal Fund, which will then pick up other areas of the county's priority areas, which can only be good for us all as a county. But really pleased with this report, and we can get cracking on this and look forward to July when the government announces the successful schemes.
Well said, Councillor Tagg. Councillor Williams?
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I too really welcome this, and I would also like to pay tribute to the Deputy Leader for his amount of effort and his enthusiasm for this, as we all know on Cabinet, how much he brings to it. And I'd like to pay tribute to the fact that he's bringing this forward and he's making sure that we can recover as best as we can from this terrible time that we've had. But I think it's a great report and I welcome it. Thank you.
I'd also add, in the Deputy Leader's absence, he has done his best to consult as widely as possible on this prior to moving forward. When things move incredibly quickly, sometimes it's not possible to consult as widely as you might wish, but that's not due to negligence or delinquency on anybody's part. It's due to the fact that sometimes we just have to move quite quickly, and we will endeavour to ensure that those people that need to be briefed and consulted are, and that it has been submitted in that spirit. Okay, you've heard the recommendations, colleagues. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Moving on then to the waste management retender for the disposal of sweepings and gully waste. And I can see many members of Cabinet literally quivering in anticipation on this report. So, Councillor Tagg, I've bigged you up. I do hope it's
Of course.
Donker.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, my first report to Cabinet, and actually I'm really enthused about this one, that we do, recycle the gully sweepings and the street sweepings, and at the moment 1,200 tonnes goes to Coal Hills under an agreement with Warwickshire County Council. The grit that's taken out of there is reused on road repairs, so a colleague next to me will get the benefit out of that, and the other materials are sifted and recycled, so it's that ultimate recycling, isn't it, from everything we do. Of course, the current arrangement comes to an end at the start of 2022, and there is an uncertainty and a short time scale on the procurement by Warwickshire. So the recommendation is to undertake a Staffordshire-only procurement that takes into account the different requirements of the districts, of course feed those street sweepings and gully sweepings into the County Council for us to send to Coles Hill, and to utilise also, we've got obviously the Cannock transfer station within the county. The alternative is that we could send it to landfill, and that would be a very sore point for me with the issues we have with landfill in Newcastle under Lyme. So I think that's really not an alternative. And I think to go down this route as recommended, and which the recommendation is that delegated authority is given to the Director of Economic Infrastructure and Skills in consultation with myself as the Cabinet member to let the contract or contracts between Staffordshire County Council and a successful tenderer or tenderers in the event that a combination of service providers provides an optimum solution. So I have every confidence and excitement and enthusiasm to recommend this to Cabinet.
Thank you. It wasn't until I got involved with this that I knew that we recycled quite as much as we did of this stuff, which is absolutely brilliant. And who wants material that can be used again going into landfill? So thank you to you and your team for your diligence on that. Were you indicating, Councillor Williams?
Yeah, I welcome, again, another report that I welcome, and actually, yes, for highways, it is a great response that we can recycle. In fact, if you're looking at the SWAR, we've recycled over 90% of the materials in that, which is a huge amount. And generally, we are recycling as much as we can. So instead of sending things to landfills and causing issues, we are recycling as many products as we can within the highways teams. And I welcome the fact that we're going to get this new system. So thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the recommendations from Councillor Tagg. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is the framework agreement for the provision of asbestos removal and encapsulation services, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Commercial Matters, Councillor DeVille.
Thank you, Chairman, and I'm equally enthusiastic about bringing this report, Chairman. It's really, really important. Current agreement expires on the 28th of February 2022, so it's absolutely essential that we place another framework in operation. And I say so often, Chairman, that this framework ensures that we get very best value for money for our Staffordshire taxpayers. And this is one reason why this report is so important. It's envisaged, Chairman, that 4 suppliers will be appointed to carry out this work. And the current annual spend is about £375,000. So we're again talking about a considerable amount of money. 4 suppliers will be appointed, and this tender process, I think, provides an excellent opportunity for local businesses and local suppliers to provide this service. So as well as getting local companies on board, it also provides a really important solid benchmark for getting best value for money. So not only is it good, prudent practice, this framework also satisfies the massively complex legal procedures around this and formalises the process. So again, we've looked over this report and this contract with a fine-tooth comb, and this framework that I'm presenting today ensures future sustainability and getting best value for the Staffordshire taxpayer. I'll take any questions, Chairman, if there are any. If not, I'll go straight to the recommendations.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you for the report, Councillor DeVille. This gives me an opportunity again to plug the Capital Schools programme, extra £5.5 million for our schools in this authority, and as part of some of that Capital School programme work, that's some of our schools who will be having upgraded roofs, etc., will require a framework in place to make sure that we have the proper disposal of asbestos within that. So both of those fall quite nicely, and it shows how important having the right framework in place is. And again, 5.5 million extra for our Capital Schools programme, and I think I've probably plugged that enough for today. Thank you.
Yep, I can confirm you've done that one to death, Councillor Price. So thank you for highlighting the, was it £5.5 million? Additional 5, thank you. Councillor DeVille.
Chairman, I recommend that Cabinet agree that Staffordshire County Council, the Council, concludes its regulated government in line with the Public Contract Regulations 2015, the regulations, for the framework agreement. B, that we agree, following the procurement process, that the successful suppliers be appointed to the framework agreement for the period from the 1st of March 2022 to the 28th of February 2024, and that dependent on the quality of their delivery, that the 24-month service extension be implemented to a final contract end date of the 28th of February 2026. And C, that we agree that the Director of Corporate Services be given delegated authority to approve the initial awards of the tendered suppliers to the framework and authorise the Council entering into the framework agreement with the successful suppliers. And also, Chairman, that we approve all subsequent call-off contracts under this framework agreement and authorise the Council entering into any call-off contracts with suppliers under the framework agreement and, if applicable, to approve the 2-year extension to the framework agreement in its 2nd year. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor DeVille. You've heard the recommendations. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Moving then to agenda item number 17, which is decisions taken by Cabinet members under delegated powers. There are 3. First, from the Cabinet Member for Highways and Transport, Councillor Williams, in approving the 2021 version of the Local Cycling and Walking Infrastructure Plan, known in the jargon as LC-WIP, for publication on Staffordshire County Council's website. The next one is Cabinet Member for Health and Care, Councillor Jessel, in approving that the Disabled Facilities Grant funding from the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, MHCLG, is transferred to the District and Borough Councils as required by the MHCLG. That the County Council enters into legal agreements with relevant District and Borough Councils to cover the transfer of funding and to ensure that it is used in line with the DFG conditions. And 3, that delegated authority is given to the Director of Health and Care to approve the transfer of the Disabled Facilities Grant monies to the District and Borough Councils in future years, whilst the current arrangement and grant conditions persist. And then finally, from the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills, in approving the Staffordshire County Council's Community Learning Funding Allocation and Distribution 2021 to 2022. They are the decisions taken by Cabinet members under delegated powers. Moving forward then to the next agenda item 18, which is the full plan of key decisions. In August 21, in public, Treasury Management Outturn Report 2020-21 brought to you by Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources, Ian Parry. In private, in August, we've got the proposed 1FE expansion at Oldfields Hall Middle School, Uttoxeter, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Education and SEND, Jonathan Price. In September, in public, we've got the recommissioning of care home services by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care, Julia Jessel. In public in September, we've got Developing Family Hubs in Staffordshire, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, Mark Sutton. Again in public in September, Impact of COVID-19 on SCC Communities' Economy and Organisational Recovery Progress, Update 2020-21 and Way Forward, brought to you by the Leader of the Council. In private in September, we've got Entrust Service Delivery Agreement, brought to you by myself. In October, in public, Household Waste Recycling Centre update, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Commercial Matters, Councillor DeVille. Again in public, in October, Integrated Performance Report Quarter 2, 21-22, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources, Ian Parry, with myself. And then finally, in public in November, Treasury Management Half-Yearly Report 21-22, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources, Ian Parry. That is the forward plan. Moving on then to the next item on... Right, yep, far away.
Thank you. There's an omission of the Climate Change Action Plan update, which I referred to early on the agenda, that needs to go in for October. In public.
Okay, so we'll amend appropriately the forward plan of key decisions as set out by Councillor Tagg. Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Moving on then to agenda item number 19, which is the exclusion of the public. I move that the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business which involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in the paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A as amended of the Local Government Act 1972 indicated below. I move.